there's a particular silence that arrives after 80. Not the silence of loneliness alone, but the silence of rooms that once used to echo with footsteps, laughter, arguments, and the everyday chaos of family life. And in that silence, a very honest question begins to whisper, now, what truly matters? Let me share a small story with you. There was an 82-year-old gentleman named Mr. Sharma. He lived in a large house, beautifully built, polished floors, framed photographs on the walls. From the outside, it looked like a life well lived. But every evening at around 6:30, he would sit on the same chair, look at the gate, and wait. Not because someone always came, but because he hoped someone would. One day, a young volunteer from a community service group visited him and asked gently, "Sir, what do you need the most right now?" He smiled faintly and said something very simple, "I don't need more years, I need more presence." That sentence carries the entire truth of life after 80, because at that stage, life is no longer about building, it is about belonging. So let's talk about what truly matters most after 80, not in theory, but in real, lived human experience. There is a beautiful illusion we often live with, that being physically present means being emotionally available. But after 80, that illusion breaks very gently and very painfully. Because at that stage of life, a senior may be surrounded by people, children, relatives, caretakers, and still feel something very deep missing. Not company, but connection. Let me put it this way. A person can sit in a room full of people and still feel like they are sitting alone on a bench in an empty park. That is emotional absence. And after 80, it becomes more noticeable because life becomes quieter, slower, and more reflective. At this stage, seniors are not looking for entertainment. They are not even looking for solutions to every problem they mention. What they are really seeking is something very simple yet profoundly human: to be emotionally seen. When an elderly person repeats a story for the 10th time, it is not forgetfulness alone. It is memory trying to stay alive in conversation. And every time someone listens with patience, it is like giving that memory another breath. But when we respond with impatience, "You already told this," or "Yes, I know," what they hear is not those words. What they feel is, "My story is no longer valuable." And slowly, they stop sharing. Emotional presence is not about long conversations. It is about quality of attention. It is when you put aside your phone, your hurry, your mental checklist of tasks, and you simply sit with another human being like they matter in that moment, because they do. A senior once said something very touching. "When my son listens to me while looking at me, I feel like I still exist in his world." Think about that. Existence for them is no longer just biological, it is relational. They exist in the attention of those they love. After 80, emotional presence becomes nourishment. Just like food feeds the body, attention feeds the heart. And the irony is, it costs nothing: no money, no complex planning, only presence. Yet in today's fast world, it becomes one of the rarest gifts. So, emotional presence is not about doing more. It is about being more available where you already are. Because sometimes the greatest love story between generations is not written in grand gestures, but in quiet moments where someone feels, "I am still important enough to be heard," slowly. One of the quietest struggles after 80 is not physical aging, it is the fading of purpose. Because for most of life, a person is defined by what they do: profession, responsibilities, roles. But when those roles slowly fade away, the question quietly emerges: if I am not needed the way I used to be, then what is my place now? And this question, if unanswered, creates emotional emptiness even in the most comfortable surroundings. But here is something very important to understand: purpose does not retire with age, it only changes its form. At 80, purpose is no longer about achievement. It is about contribution, however small, however quiet. It could be something as simple as waking up early and watering plants. It could be folding clothes, organizing a drawer, or simply sitting by the window and praying for the family. To an outsider, these may look like small acts, but to the person doing them, these are anchors of identity. They are silent reminders: I still matter in this home. There is a deep emotional psychology here. When a person feels useful, even in the smallest way, their mind sends a signal of worthiness. and worthiness keeps despair away. I remember an elderly woman who used to say, "My grandchildren think I just sit and do nothing. But they don't know I am the one who holds this house together with my prayers." Now, whether one believes in that literally or not is not the point. The point is, she felt needed, and that feeling gave her life structure. Purpose after 80 is not about productivity metrics, it is about emotional relevance. Even asking a senior for advice about family decisions, recipes, traditions can restore a sense of participation in life because it tells them your experience still has value. And here is something beautiful: purpose does not need permission from age. A 10-year-old can have purpose, a 30-year-old can have purpose, and an 80-year-old absolutely can have purpose. The mistake we often make is assuming purpose must look big. But in truth, purpose is simply the feeling that I am still part of something meaningful. And sometimes that meaning is not in doing more, but in being present with love in the life that already exists around them. Because when purpose stays alive, the heart stays awake. Respect is one of those words we often believe we understand, but rarely practice with awareness. We assume that because we love our elders, we automatically respect them. But love and respect, while connected, are not the same thing. Love can be felt internally. Respect must be expressed externally. After 80, sensitivity to respect becomes sharper. Not because elders become fragile in personality, but because life becomes more emotionally distilled. There is less distraction, more awareness of how people behave. At this stage, even small things carry emotional weight: tone of voice, eye contact, how someone is addressed in conversation. For example, speaking about a senior in front of others as if they are not present, even if unintentionally, can feel deeply disempowering. It creates a subtle emotional message: you are no longer part of this conversation. Respect, on the other hand, restores inclusion. It is shown when we pause and involve them in dialogue. When we ask, "What do you think?" even if we already have a decision in mind. Because the act of asking itself is dignity giving. Respect is also in pace, not rushing their speech, not finishing their sentences, not treating their slower responses as inconvenience. Because after 80, time itself feels different. It is not rushed, it is reflective. And when we rush them, we are not just rushing conversation, we are rushing their existence. Visible respect also means correcting gently, not publicly. It means disagreement without dismissal. There is a subtle but powerful difference between saying, "That's not correct," and "I see your point, but I think there is another way to look at it." One preserves dignity, the other erodes it. And here is something often overlooked: elders are extremely aware of how much space they occupy in the family ecosystem. Respect reassures them that their presence is still welcome, not merely tolerated. When respect is visible, not assumed, it creates emotional safety. It tells a senior, "You are not just part of the past of this family, you are still part of its present." And that feeling is priceless. Because at the end of life, respect is not about status, it is about recognition of a lifetime lived. Health after 80 is not just a medical issue, it is an emotional ecosystem. Because at this stage, even small physical discomforts can carry large emotional interpretations. A mild pain is not just pain, it becomes uncertainty. And uncertainty is what truly creates fear. What seniors need most is not constant medical intervention. It is reliable reassurance systems. That means knowing exactly who to call, what will happen if something goes wrong, that someone will respond calmly, not panicked, because panic is contagious. And for an elderly person, witnessing panic in caregivers often feels more frightening than the health issue itself. One of the deepest fears after 80 is not illness. It is the fear of being alone during illness, the fear of becoming a problem situation rather than a person being cared for. So, reliable health support is built on structure, not emotion alone. It includes simple things: organized medication schedules, regular check ins, clarity about emergency plans, and most importantly, calm presence during health concerns. A senior does not always need dramatic action. Often, they need someone to sit beside them and say, "We will take care of this step by step." That sentence alone can reduce anxiety significantly because clarity is healing. Confusion, on the other hand, magnifies suffering. There is also an important emotional truth. After 80, independence becomes deeply valued. So, health support must balance care with dignity. It should not feel like surveillance. It should feel like support. Even asking permission before assisting or explaining what you are doing preserves autonomy. And autonomy is deeply connected to emotional well being. Reliable health support is not about overreacting to every symptom. It is about creating a predictable, safe environment where the senior feels, I am not alone in this. Because at that stage of life, peace is not the absence of health challenges, it is the presence of dependable care. And that peace is everything.